My starting point when it comes to the consideration of any issue relating to free speech is my passionate belief that the second most precious thing in life is the right to express yourself freely. That is because I have enjoyed free expression in this country all my professional life and fully expect to continue to do so. Personally, I suspect highly unlikely to be arrested.
Has Rowan Atkinson just pulled back the curtain on what he sees as the most troubling shift in British politics? The man the world knows as Mr. Bean has stepped far beyond the stage lights and into the national debate, delivering a pointed warning that Starmer's direction could erode the foundations of British comedy and place real pressure on free expression, sending ripples through Westminster and forcing officials onto the defensive. And before we go further, if you value sharp analysis like this, take a second to like the video and subscribe. Most viewers tune in without joining the channel, and your support genuinely helps. Now back to it. Atkinson's pivot into political commentary has stunned many, transforming a global icon of physical humor and surgical satire into a firm, articulate critic of Labour's trajectory. The contrast is powerful. The entertainer who spent decades making audiences roar with laughter now raising his voice with urgency, arguing that creative freedom is under strain, and that Britain must guard it carefully before the lines of acceptable speech grow narrower than anyone expected.
Like the man arrested in Oxford for calling a police horse gay. Or the teenager arrested for calling the Church of Scientology a cult because of the undoubtedly privileged position that is afforded to those of a high public profile. So my concerns are less for myself and more for those more vulnerable because of their lower profile.
Atkinson's remarks are not a casual aside, but a calculated challenge that cuts straight through Labour's polished image, as he openly questions the path Keir Starmer is steering the party down, especially when it comes to freedom of expression in comedy. His warning doesn't emerge in a vacuum. In recent years, a string of high-profile controversies has fueled concern about where the boundaries now lie, from a creator fined over a provocative satirical video to major comedians facing intense backlash and public pressure after divisive jokes, together casting a shadow over the future of stand-up in Britain. For Atkinson, the accumulation of these moments signals something deeper, a climate where creative risk feels increasingly costly. He argues that humor, even when sharp or uncomfortable, acts as a societal release valve, exposing hard truths, testing limits, and challenging authority. And if that space narrows too far, the consequence isn't just quieter punchlines but a culture less willing to confront itself honestly. Without that freedom, Atkinson warns, Britain risks sliding into a cautious, overly polished culture where sharp ideas are dulled and bold commentary slowly squeezed out, making his intervention especially potent at a moment when Labour presents itself as the engine of renewal. His message zeroes in on what critics see as a weak point in Keir Starmer's platform, raising uneasy questions about how Labour's direction could shape not only the future of comedy, but the broader climate for open expression across the country. At the core of Atkinson's concern is a perceived gap between public reassurances and the practical impact of policy, with some artists arguing that recent positions feel restrictive and discouraging rather than empowering. That tension fuels speculation about how a leader who once spoke confidently about protecting free speech and backing the creative industries now faces accusations of drifting from those commitments, prompting a sharper debate over consistency, principle, and the long-term consequences for Britain's cultural voice. Those early pledges struck a chord with performers who thought they had finally gained a political ally against creeping restrictions, yet over time critics say Labour's tone on expression and comedy grew firmer, prompting figures like Rowan Atkinson to step forward and highlight policy directions he believes could dramatically reshape the UK's comedy scene by cultivating an atmosphere where artists feel guarded, hesitant to test limits or explore contentious themes. The result, he argues, could be a chilling effect that drains British humour of its sharpness, irreverence, and cultural bite. While Starmer continues to affirm his support for free speech, detractors contend that the broader direction of the party sends mixed signals, fueling frustration among comedians who fear that something central to Britain's creative spirit is under mounting pressure. To them, the concern is not about protecting a few provocative punchlines, but about safeguarding a defining national trait, an unapologetic comedic tradition that challenges authority, questions norms, and refuses to play it safe. At the heart of it all is the freedom to laugh at ourselves, to lampoon those in authority, and to use humor as a razor-sharp instrument for scrutiny and critique. But the stakes, critics argue, extend far beyond the walls of comedy clubs, touching the very bedrock of open expression in Britain and raising concerns about how speech may be defined, restricted, or enforced in ways that ripple through the arts, journalism, and public debate. What once sounded like parody, a world where jokes are screened for legal risk, now feels, to many performers, uncomfortably close to reality. Atkinson has spotlighted what he sees as a widening culture of self-censorship, with writers and comedians increasingly unsure where the invisible lines are drawn, no longer anxious merely about offending but about facing formal repercussions. He points to headline-grabbing incidents that seemed almost surreal, individuals questioned over provocative remarks, disputes sparked by blunt characterizations of controversial organizations, even business owners challenged over public displays of religious text, episodes that have left many creatives weighing every word, wary that a single misstep could trigger consequences far beyond criticism. Atkinson has made clear that his deepest worry is not for established figures like himself, but for emerging voices without the shield of fame, artists whose lower profiles make them easier targets and far more likely to stay silent before they ever take the stage. That, he argues, is where the real damage lies, a quiet suffocation of creativity as fear replaces boldness. Comedy is meant to test boundaries, spark debate, and hold authority to account. Strip away its freedom, and it loses its purpose. If performers are constantly second-guessing every line, the outcome is a diluted, risk-averse version of British humor, polite, cautious, and stripped of the bite that once defined a nation celebrated for razor-sharp wit and fearless satire. The danger, critics warn, is a cultural slide from vibrant originality into bland uniformity. Yet the story may not end there. As awareness grows and more voices rally behind Atkinson's concerns, resistance to tightening boundaries is gaining momentum, fueled by a noticeable shift in public mood and a widening coalition uneasy about overcorrection. The pressing question now is whether that momentum will be strong enough to defend Britain's long tradition of unapologetic, boundary-pushing comedy before it fades into something far safer, and far smaller, than it once was. Momentum is building fast, turning Atkinson's intervention into a rallying cry for those who believe their freedom to laugh is being squeezed. With social media lighting up in support of comedians and calls to defend open expression spreading at speed, less a passing flare-up than a sustained wave of frustration. That surge is colliding head-on with louder demands for tighter speech standards, sharpening a cultural divide that now plays out daily in panels, podcasts, and public forums, increasingly framed as a struggle over the future character of British humour itself. Survey data reflects the tension, indicating widespread concern about the chilling effect restrictions may be having on artistic risk-taking, and a shared fear that the bold, authority-challenging spirit long associated with British comedy is losing ground. What makes this moment striking is how it cuts across party lines, drawing together people who rarely agree on anything else. At the same time, a visible grassroots push is forming around performers and free expression, with petitions, organized events, and coordinated campaigns gathering pace, signaling that this debate is no longer confined to stages and studios but has evolved into a broader national reckoning over creativity, limits, and identity. The momentum is no longer confined to performers. Ordinary citizens are stepping forward to defend their right to laugh without fearing backlash, catching many politicians off guard and forcing a rethink of comfortable assumptions. The implications for British politics and culture are significant, as this rising movement begins to shape campaign narratives and pressure candidates to confront public unease over free expression if they want to reconnect with voters who feel unheard. It is a sharp reminder that in a democracy, authority ultimately flows from the public, and right now, many are insisting that the freedom to joke, question, and satirize remains non-negotiable. Comedy has become an unlikely frontline in a broader debate about fundamental liberties, leaving a pointed question hanging over Westminster. Will leaders recognize the force behind this demand, or will they continue to underestimate how a single, well-aimed punchline can shift the national mood?